Imagine saving for nearly a decade to buy your dream house, only for your parents to show up with paperwork, saying your sister's name needs to be added. Not for any reason you can understand, just because family shares everything. That day, I realized the people I trusted most were ready to steal years of my hard work. They thought I'd cave like always. But what they didn't know, I'd been planning something they'd never see coming. For as long as I can remember, I dreamed of having a place that was truly mine, a home where I didn't have to ask permission to hang a picture, where silence didn't mean tension, and where peace wasn't a luxury. That dream became my reason to wake up every morning. I started saving right after college, juggling a full-time job during the day and part-time shifts at a diner at night. My friends used to joke that I was married to my paycheck, but in truth, I was married to a dream. Every dollar I earned had a purpose, and every small sacrifice was another brick in the foundation of the life I wanted to build. My apartment during those years was small enough that I could touch the stove from my bed. The paint peeled, the pipes groaned, and the landlord never fixed anything on time, but I didn't complain. I told myself it was temporary. I skipped nights out, passed on vacations, and avoided even small luxuries like ordering takeout. When others spent their weekends at the beach, I worked overtime or picked up extra shifts. I learned to cook cheap meals, mend my own clothes, and find joy in the simplest things, like marking another month of savings in my little notebook. There were moments when exhaustion hit me so hard I'd question if it was worth it. Some nights, I'd sit by the window, looking at the city lights, wondering if I was chasing something that would never come. But then I'd remind myself why I started, because I wanted to stand on my own. I didn't want to rely on anyone, not my parents, not anyone else. My parents, of course, didn't understand. To them, my obsession with saving was unnecessary stress. They'd tell me to enjoy life while you're young or ask why I wouldn't just move back home to save money. What they really meant was control. Living under their roof meant living under their rules. And while they claimed it was love, I'd learned long ago that love in my house came with conditions. Especially when it came to my sister. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When she failed an exam, it was the teacher's fault. When I aced mine, it was because I'd studied too much. If she needed money, my parents gave it without question. If I needed help, I was told to be responsible. It hurt sometimes, but I learned to let it roll off my back. Competing with her for approval was a game I stopped playing years ago. Instead, I focused on my goal. Every time I added to my savings account, I imagined the keys to my future home resting in my palm. That thought kept me going through the fatigue, the loneliness, the self-doubt. I wasn't just saving for a house, I was saving for freedom. For once in my life, I wanted something that no one could take away, something that would finally belong to me and me alone. The day I found my dream house felt almost unreal, like the universe had finally decided to reward me for every sleepless night and every dollar I'd saved. It wasn't a mansion or something straight out of a magazine, but it was mine. A 2-story home with a small garden in the front, sunlight pouring through wide windows, and a porch big enough for a chair and morning coffee. When I first walked through it, I could already see my future unfolding there, quiet mornings, peaceful evenings, and the kind of comfort I'd only ever imagined. Signing those papers was one of the proudest moments of my life. I remember holding the keys, my hands shaking, a mix of excitement and disbelief rushing through me. For a long time, I'd felt invisible, like my hard work never mattered, but that day, it all did. Every long shift, every missed party, every moment I told myself not yet had finally led here. I stood in the empty living room, the echo of my footsteps bouncing off the walls, and I laughed. It wasn't fancy or grand, but to me, it was everything. When I told my parents, they acted thrilled. My mom cried over the phone, saying, "We're so proud of you." My dad's voice even softened for once. They insisted on visiting, saying they wanted to see the place their hardworking child bought all on their own. I won't lie, it felt good. For the first time, I thought maybe they finally saw me, not as second best, not as the backup plan, but as someone who had achieved something real. When they arrived, they complimented every corner. My mom walked through the rooms like she was taking mental inventory, and my dad asked question after question about the price, the neighborhood, the mortgage. My sister tagged along too, snapping pictures and posting them online with captions like, "So proud of my sibling." At first, it all seemed harmless. Family curiosity, I told myself. But then, their questions started to shift, small, subtle things. Whose name is on the deed? My dad asked casually. Did you put any family member as a co-owner, just in case? My mom laughed as she added, you know, it's always safer to have someone else on paper. Maybe your sister? I smiled, brushing it off, but somewhere deep inside, a strange unease began to grow. A week after their visit, my parents called and said they wanted to stop by again. They had something important to discuss. Their tone was calm, cheerful even, so I didn't think much of it. When they arrived, my mom was holding a folder, and my dad had that serious expression he used when he wanted to sound logical and reasonable. We sat in my new living room, the walls still bare, boxes still unpacked, and that's when they placed the folder on the table between us. My mom smiled, the kind of smile that hides an agenda. Sweetheart, we've been thinking, she began softly, and we realized it's only fair if your sister's name is added to the house deed. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. My heart paused, waiting for a punchline that never came. My dad nodded, crossing his arms like it was already decided. It's the right thing to do, he said matter-of-factly. She's your sister, part of this family. Family shares everything. Then my sister chimed in from the couch, grinning. Yeah. It's our family's house now. I mean, I'll probably move in one day too, it just makes sense to have my name on it. I sat there frozen, my breath caught between disbelief and rage. I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. These were the people who watched me work myself to exhaustion, who told me to stop stressing about money, who never once offered to help, and now they were sitting in my house, with my paperwork, acting like it was theirs to divide. I asked, carefully, why would her name need to be there? I bought this place myself. My dad sighed like I was being unreasonable. It's not about money. It's about family security. What if something happens to you? It would be better if it stayed in the family name. My mom leaned in, her tone honeyed. We're not asking for much, just a small thing to keep things fair. Fair. That word burned in my chest. Fair, when my sister had been handed everything her entire life. Fair, when I'd spent years earning what she took for granted. I stared at the folder on the table. Inside were already filled out forms, waiting for my signature. They had planned this. They hadn't come to ask, they'd come to claim. That was the moment something in me shifted. The shock melted into cold clarity. They thought I'd bend, like always. But this time, they'd learn I wasn't the same person they could guilt into giving up. That was the day I promised myself, they'd regret underestimating me. The days that followed were a blur of tension and manipulation. My parents didn't give up easily, they never did. When I refused to sign the papers, the guilt-tripping began almost immediately. My dad called that night, his voice heavy with disappointment. After everything we've done for you, he started, this is how you repay us? We raised you, fed you, supported you through college, and now you can't do one small thing for your family? His words were rehearsed, the same emotional traps he'd used my entire life. My mom chimed in, her voice trembling with forced hurt. We're not asking for much, sweetheart. We just want to make sure everyone's treated equally. It's not fair that your sister gets left out. You have a good job, a nice house, why not share your blessings? Share. That word again. To them, sharing meant surrendering. They never asked my sister to share her luxuries, her opportunities, or the things they handed her without question. But now that I had built something for myself, suddenly fairness mattered. My sister played her role perfectly. She sent me messages saying I'd changed and that I was breaking the family apart. She even cried over a family call, saying she didn't understand why I was being so selfish. Theatrics had always been her specialty. My parents fell for it immediately, or maybe they just pretended to pressure me further. Soon, relatives started calling too. My aunt left a voice message telling me I'd regret letting greed destroy family ties. An uncle I hadn't spoken to in years texted, "You're lucky to even have a family that cares enough to want to share with you." It was coordinated. I could feel it. My parents were rallying everyone to shame me into submission. But this time, I didn't argue. I didn't shout or defend myself. I simply said, "I'll think about it," and ended every call with a polite tone that made them believe I was considering their request. In reality, I was already several steps ahead. I contacted a property lawyer the next day. We reviewed every legal detail of my ownership, title, deed, mortgage, making sure there were no loopholes. My lawyer suggested setting up title protection and even advised me on how to monitor for unauthorized activity related to my property. I followed every recommendation meticulously. I locked everything down, legally and digitally. While my parents and sister were busy planning how to corner me emotionally, I was securing my house so tightly that even an angel couldn't alter the paperwork without my approval. I began to distance myself from them, fewer calls, shorter visits, polite excuses. The silence made them nervous, and I could sense their frustration growing. Every time I looked around my house, I reminded myself why I was doing this. It wasn't just about keeping a name off a deed. It was about finally taking back control of my life. And this time, I wasn't going to let guilt or manipulation take that away from me ever again. A few weeks later, the uneasy quiet broke. I was at work when I got a call from my realtor, the same one who'd helped me close the deal on my house. Her voice sounded hesitant, careful, like she didn't know how to say what she needed to. "I just wanted to confirm something," she said. "Your parents came by the office earlier today. They mentioned there was a small update to the deed, something about adding your sister as a co-owner. They even brought what looked like a signed agreement from you." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. My parents hadn't just tried to guilt me, they'd tried to go around me. They'd actually spoken to a professional and pretended I'd approved it. When I finally found my voice, I asked my realtor to email me copies of whatever they'd shown her. Within minutes, the documents arrived in my inbox, and as I opened the file, my stomach turned. It was a fake family agreement, complete with a signature that looked suspiciously like mine. The text said I had no objection to adding my sister as a co-owner for family stability. The handwriting was sloppy, but the audacity behind it was crystal clear. They really thought they could outsmart me, manipulate the system and make it official before I even noticed. I didn't confront them right away. No, that's what they expected, an emotional outburst, a confrontation they could twist into another guilt trip. Instead, I stayed quiet. Calm. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, who immediately flagged the attempt and notified the county records office. Any future changes to my property would now require my physical presence, ID verification, and direct authorization. That night, when my mom called casually, pretending everything was normal, I played along. I asked her about her day, about dinner, about my sister's latest achievements. Not once did I mention the forged papers. I wanted them to feel comfortable, to believe their little plan was still alive. Because the longer they believed that, the easier it would be to watch them walk straight into the trap they'd built for themselves. As I hung up the phone, I remember smiling, not from joy, but from realization. They thought they were outsmarting me, but every move they made was walking right into my setup. After discovering the forged agreement, I realized my parents weren't just trying to manipulate me, they were actively plotting to take something I had built from the ground up. It wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about control. And if they wanted a game, I'd play it, but on my terms. The next morning, I met with my lawyer again. I laid out everything, the forged papers, the realtor's call, even my family's growing pressure. My lawyer listened carefully, then smiled faintly and said, "We can make sure this never happens again." That's when she suggested I transfer the property into a living trust, one completely under my control. The trust would own the house, and I'd be the sole trustee. No one, not even family, could touch it without my approval. It was airtight, legal, and utterly out of their reach. The process took a few days, during which I moved silently, deliberately. I changed my locks, updated my property insurance, and set alerts for any activity tied to my address. I even made sure all future correspondence regarding the house would go through a private P.O. box. My lawyer handled the paperwork, and soon the house was officially part of a legal entity that no one could claim but me. Meanwhile, I stayed in character, the obedient, quiet child they thought they could still manipulate. I answered their calls, visited occasionally, and pretended everything was fine. When my mom suggested throwing a family dinner to celebrate my new house, I agreed instantly. It was the perfect stage. In the days leading up to the dinner, I noticed my sister's posts online becoming bolder. She uploaded pictures of my living room with captions like, "Our family home is finally coming together," and commented back to friends saying things like, "I'll have my own room soon." It was almost funny how confident she was, how certain my parents must have made her feel. I didn't correct her. Let her believe. The night of the dinner, the atmosphere was thick with fake warmth. My parents arrived early, acting like hosts rather than guests. My mom brought a casserole, my dad a bottle of wine, and my sister floated around taking pictures, giving tours like she already lived there. I sat back, observing, calm but boiling beneath the surface. At one point, as we were eating, my sister raised her glass and announced, "I'm just so excited to start helping decorate our house." My parents nodded proudly, and my mom turned to me with that same saccharine tone. "We're just so proud that our family's future is secure now," she said. "It's such a blessing that you agreed to share it with your sister." I set down my fork and smiled. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice steady, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you all." They looked at me expectantly. I stood, walked over to the sideboard, and pulled out a slim folder, the updated property papers. I handed it to my dad. "Since you were so concerned about security," I said, "I took care of it. The house isn't under my name anymore." For a second, they looked triumphant, until they flipped through the pages. My dad's face went pale. My mom's smile froze. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's in a living trust," I said calmly. "Owned and controlled entirely by me. No one else can claim it, change it, or add their name to it. Not even family." The silence that followed was beautiful. My sister's fork clattered against her plate. My parents stared at me, realization dawning that every move they'd made had only pushed me to lock them out completely. I leaned back in my chair, meeting their stunned faces. "So yes," I said, "you were right about one thing. The house is secure, just not for you." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of the ceiling fan, slicing through the thick silence like a blade. My dad flipped through the documents again, as if reading them twice would change the words on the page. My mom's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to anger. And my sister, her face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. "What do you mean it's in a trust?" my dad finally snapped, his voice sharp and demanding. "You had no right to do that behind our backs." Behind their backs. The irony almost made me laugh. I took a slow sip of water, steady and unbothered. Actually, I had every right. It's my house. My name. My money. I just made sure no one could touch it again, especially after that fake agreement you tried to file. My mom's mouth fell open. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "We would never." I cut her off before she could spin another lie. "Don't bother. My lawyer already sent copies of the forged papers to the proper offices. Everything's been documented. Next time, maybe don't use my old signature from my college transcripts. It wasn't even the right format." My sister slammed her hand on the table. "You're insane. This was supposed to be a family home. You're acting like we're strangers." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the strangest calm wash over me. "You are strangers," I said softly. "At least to the version of me that lets people steal from her." She blinked, speechless. My dad started muttering something about ungrateful children and betraying family values, while my mom's eyes welled up in performative tears. They were trying every tactic they knew, anger, guilt, pity, but none of it worked anymore. I stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up my phone. "Just so you know," I said evenly, "this conversation is being recorded. For legal reasons." That shut them up instantly. My dad's jaw tightened, my mom's sobs stopped mid-breath, and my sister looked like she wanted to disappear. I walked back to the table, gathering the papers. "Dinner's over," I said, my voice calm but final. "You can finish your meal or you can leave, but either way, this topic is done." When I walked them to the door, my mom tried one last plea. "You'll regret this someday," she whispered. I smiled faintly. "No," I said. "For the first time, I think I won't." As the door closed behind them, I felt an unfamiliar stillness settle in my chest. Not anger, not guilt, just peace. For years, they had dictated how I lived, what I gave, what I owed. But tonight, that chain finally broke. I looked around my home, and exhaled. They wanted a piece of my dream. Instead, I gave them a lesson they'd never forget. In the days that followed, silence replaced chaos. No phone calls. No guilt-tripping messages. No sudden family visits. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't buzzing with someone else's expectations, it was quiet, peaceful, almost foreign. I knew my parents well enough to understand that the silence wasn't acceptance, it was shock. They weren't used to losing control, especially over me. A week later, my mom finally reached out. Her tone was soft, rehearsed, the voice she used when she wanted something. "We didn't mean to upset you," she said. "We were just trying to protect the family's future. Maybe we went about it the wrong way." My dad added a curt, "You've made your point," as if this entire ordeal had been some kind of power struggle instead of a violation of trust. I listened quietly, thanked them for their apology, and ended the call without promising anything. Then came my sister. Her message was much less subtle. "You've completely ruined this family," she wrote. "Mom's been crying, Dad's furious, and everyone knows you care more about money than people. Congratulations." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. She wasn't angry because I hurt the family, she was angry because she couldn't benefit from me anymore. Over time, the silence settled into something more permanent. Family gatherings went on without me, holidays were celebrated separately, and the rare times we spoke, the conversations were clipped and polite. But instead of feeling lonely, I felt light. I realized how exhausting it had been to constantly chase approval that was never meant for me. One evening, a few weeks after it all ended, I sat on my porch as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky was painted with gold and violet, and a warm breeze carried the faint scent of cut grass. I wrapped my hands around a mug of coffee and just breathed. For years, my life had been about proving something, to my parents, to my sister, even to myself. But now, for the first time, I didn't have to prove anything. The house behind me stood quiet, sturdy, mine. Every wall, every tile, every creak in the floorboards carried the story of my struggle and my victory. I realized then that family doesn't mean blind trust or endless sacrifice. Sometimes, it means learning when to protect yourself from the very people who should have protected you. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was free, and that freedom, earned through years of sacrifice and one unforgettable lesson, was worth more than any apology could ever be. Sometimes revenge isn't loud, it's silent, legal, and final. My parents thought adding my sister's name would make me share my dream, but all it did was show me who really cared about my success. Now, every time I walk through my house, I'm reminded not of betrayal, but of freedom. I didn't just buy walls and a roof. I bought peace, independence, and the right to never let guilt steal from me again. And honestly, that's the sweetest revenge of all.